Welcome back to the gripping world of 1923, where loyalty is tested and survival hangs by a thread. In Season 2, Episode 7, the stakes have never been higher. Spencer Dutton's journey, already a testament to resilience, takes a devastating turn that will leave you breathless. But this isn't just one man's story. It's a seismic shift that threatens to unravel the very fabric of the Dutton legacy. As trust shatters and long-buried secrets claw their way to the surface, alliances fracture, and danger looms at every turn. In a world where survival demands sacrifice, who can you truly rely on? Prepare yourself for an episode that will leave you questioning every motive, every bond, and every decision. The Duttons' fight for their future is far from over, but in this game of power and betrayal, not everyone will make it out alive. Let's dive in. For a fleeting moment, it seems like peace might finally be within reach. The Duttons, bruised but not broken, are holding on to the last remnants of hope. Kara, the unwavering matriarch, has spent weeks trying to piece together the fractured remains of their family. Jacob, hardened by battle and loss, refuses to show weakness, but the weight of responsibility is crushing him. The Yellowstone Ranch stands resilient, but the enemies lurking in the shadows grow bolder with each passing day. Spencer, having endured an unforgiving odyssey, is inching closer to home. Every mile traveled carries the scars of his past, the blood spilled, the lives lost, and the ghosts that haunt him. His return should be a moment of triumph, a beacon of hope for his family. But fate is rarely so kind to a Dutton. The moment he steps onto Montana soil, an invisible noose tightens around him. He doesn't realize it yet, but he's walked into a trap. Meanwhile, across town, Banner Creighton, the snake that refuses to die, is plotting his next move. Stripped of power but not his cunning, he knows that brute force won't break the Duttons, but betrayal will. And he's found the perfect pawn to carry out his revenge, someone close to the family, someone they'd never suspect. As the tension mounts, the Duttons prepare for yet another battle. But this time, the real threat isn't coming from outside their gates, it's lurking within. And by the time they realize it, it may already be too late. The days leading up to Spencer's return are filled with unease, an unshakable tension that lingers in the air like a brewing storm. Kara feels it in the way the ranch hands move, their eyes darting with silent whispers of something unseen. Jacob senses it in the tightening of his gut, a feeling he's learned never to ignore. Even Jack, young but not naive, notices the shift in the wind, but none of them can place the source of the unease. They assume it's the lingering threat of their enemies, beyond the ranch, perhaps Banner Creighton, perhaps Donald Whitfield and his relentless thirst for control. But they're looking in the wrong direction because the real danger isn't outside the ranch, it's standing among them. The betrayal begins quietly, a missing rifle here, a misplaced ledger there. Small things that, on their own, could be dismissed as accidents. But taken together, they form a pattern. Someone is carefully, methodically dismantling the Duttons' defenses, leaving them vulnerable in ways they don't yet comprehend. Spencer, weary but determined, arrives in Montana with one goal in mind: to fight for his family. He has no idea that the war has already begun in his absence. He rides through the familiar gates of the Yellowstone, expecting relief, perhaps even joy at seeing his home again. But instead, he is met with suspicion. Unspoken questions linger in the eyes of those who once called him brother. He doesn't understand why, but the moment he sets foot on the land he fought to return to, it feels different. The betrayal has already begun to take root, and Spencer is unknowingly stepping into a trap carefully laid for him. Meanwhile, Banner Creighton watches from a distance, knowing the perfect moment to strike is drawing near. His hatred for the Duttons has evolved into something more sinister, a need to dismantle them from the inside. And this time, he won't be acting alone. He has a powerful hand to play, one that no one will see coming. Someone within the Yellowstone is feeding him information, slowly peeling away the Dutton's sense of security. The first real sign of treachery comes when one of the ranch's most loyal men is found dead, a bullet to the back, left to rot in the fields. Jacob sees it as a warning. Kara sees it as a declaration of war. But Spencer sees it for what it truly is, a message. Someone wanted him to find it. Someone is trying to tell him that he is not safe, not even here. As night falls over the ranch, the feeling of unease thickens. Jacob begins fortifying their defenses, pulling men from the fields to stand guard. But the real threat isn't outside the gates, it's already within the walls. The traitor moves in silence, shifting the pieces into place for the final blow. And by the time the Duttons realize the true extent of the danger, it may already be too late. The Yellowstone Ranch has always been a fortress, a place where trust is earned through loyalty and blood. But now, that trust is unraveling thread by thread, and no one sees it coming until it's too late. The Duttons have fought off enemies before corrupt businessmen, greedy landowners, merciless outlaws. But never have they faced a war from within. This betrayal isn't loud or brash. It doesn't come in the form of an ambush on horseback or a public declaration of vengeance. It's quiet, insidious, creeping through the very foundations of the ranch like rot spreading through a tree. And Spencer Dutton is at the center of it. It begins with whispers, small doubts seated in conversations behind closed doors. Some of the ranch hands start questioning Spencer's loyalty, wondering why he's returned now after all this time and what ghosts may be following him. It's subtle at first, a missing ration of supplies, a delayed message meant for Jacob, an order given in Spencer's name that he swears he never made. Kara, the sharpest mind among them, starts noticing the inconsistencies. But before she can piece the puzzle together, a far greater disaster strikes. One night, under the cover of darkness, the Yellowstone is attacked. But it isn't an attack of brute force, it's a precise, calculated strike. The cattle are set loose, the gates left open as chaos erupts across the ranch. In the commotion, the Duttons are forced to divide their forces, sending men in all directions to control the damage. And that's when the real betrayal takes place. A group of masked men, their identities hidden beneath the cloak of night, strike the heart of the ranch. But they aren't here for land or for cattle. They are here for Spencer. They move with certainty, like men who know the layout of the ranch, who understand where the weak points are, where the shadows are deepest. This isn't a random raid, this is an orchestrated attack. Spencer, unaware that he's the target, fights like a man possessed. He takes down two of the intruders before realizing the brutal truth: the enemy is closer than he ever imagined. Truth is, these men aren't just here to attack the ranch, they're here to take him. Before he can react, before he can reach for his rifle, he feels the cold steel of a gun barrel against the back of his head. Everything blurs. There's a struggle, shouts in the darkness, the distant sound of hooves pounding against the earth, and then nothing. By the time Jacob and the others push back the attack and regroup, Spencer is gone taken. The only thing left behind is a single bullet casing placed deliberately in the dirt, a message that only one man could have left behind, Banner Creighton. But what Jacob doesn't know, what Kara doesn't yet suspect, is that Creighton didn't pull this off alone. Someone inside the ranch helped him, someone close, someone they trusted. And now, Spencer is in the hands of the enemy, his fate hanging by a thread. Spencer wakes to the bitter sting of cold metal against his wrists, his hands bound behind his back, his body aching from the relentless blows he endured before blacking out. The air is damp, the scent of earth and sweat thick around him. He's underground, in some kind of holding cell, a place meant to break men before they're disposed of. A single flickering lantern barely illuminates the rough stone walls surrounding him. He tries to move, but a sharp pain in his ribs forces him still. They wanted him alive, but they didn't care if he was in one piece. Footsteps echo in the distance, slow and deliberate. Then the creak of a heavy door swings open, casting a long shadow across the dirt floor. Spencer lifts his head, his vision sharpening just enough to recognize the smirking face of his captor, Banner Creighton. Creighton steps closer, his presence oozing with satisfaction. "Never thought I'd see the great Spencer Dutton chained like a dog," he taunts, his voice dripping with venom. "You've been a ghost for too long, boy. Now, you're just another man who's outlived his usefulness." Spencer glares at him, his jaw tightening. "If you're going to kill me, get on with it," he growls. But Creighton laughs, shaking his head. Oh no, not yet. Killing you now would be too easy. I want your family to suffer first. I want them to watch as everything they've built crumbles, knowing they were betrayed from within. The words hit Spencer like a fist to the gut. Betrayed from within. He had his suspicions that something was off, but hearing it confirmed sends a surge of fury through his veins. Someone in the Yellowstone gave him up, led these men straight to him. The thought sickens him more than the pain in his body. Back at the ranch, Jacob Dutton is on the warpath. The attack wasn't just a warning, it was an open declaration of war. But what unsettles him the most isn't the sheer boldness of it, it's the fact that someone inside the ranch knew exactly when and how to strike. The Duttons have faced enemies before, but this betrayal is different. The weight of betrayal sits heavily over the Yellowstone, a suffocating presence that none of them can shake. For years, the Duttons have fought against threats from the outside greedy land barons, corrupt officials, and ruthless cattle thieves. But this is different. This time, the enemy is within. The thought alone is enough to twist a knife into Jacob Dutton's gut. He stands at the long wooden table, his hands pressed firmly against the surface as his mind races. Around him, the room is tense, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Kara watches him with cautious eyes. Jack sits rigid, with barely contained fury. And the others glance at each other, as if wondering who among them might have already sold their soul to the highest bidder. Then Jack, unable to contain himself any longer, speaks. His voice is tight, low, barely above a whisper, yet it carries enough weight to silence the room completely. I heard a name, he says, his gaze locking onto Jacob's, unwavering. Someone we trust. Someone who's been feeding them information. A heavy pause follows. The oil lamp flickers, casting unsteady shadows on the walls. No one breathes. Jacob's voice is cold, his tone edged with a deadly calm. Who? Jack clenches his jaw, forcing himself to say it. Clive Harrison. The reaction is immediate. Kara's sharp intake of breath cuts through the silence. One of the ranch hands mutters a curse under his breath. Clive Harrison, a man who had worked for the Yellowstone for years, a man they had fought beside, trusted with their land, their home, their lives. The thought that he had turned against them feels impossible. And yet, as the name lingers in the air, the puzzle pieces begin to fall into place. The missing supplies, the odd shifts in routine, the way Clive had always seemed to be around when something went wrong, yet never in the thick of the fight. Kara is the first to speak, her voice laced with quiet realization. He was the one who told Spencer to go to the east field that night, she murmurs, her gaze darkening. The exact spot where they ambushed him. The betrayal cuts deeper now. What once seemed like coincidence now feels like a carefully orchestrated trap. Jacob grips the edge of the table, his fingers tightening until his knuckles turn white. There's no time to dwell on what they could have done differently. Spencer is still out there, in enemy hands, suffering because of a man they had trusted. Miles away, Spencer remains bound in a dimly lit room, his muscles aching from the restraints that have kept him tied to a chair for hours. His head throbs, his ribs scream with every breath, but the pain barely registers compared to the rage burning inside him. Across from him, Banner Creighton paces lazily, dragging out the moment, relishing in his triumph. Creighton taunts, his voice dripping with smug satisfaction. You should have stayed gone, Spencer. You came back thinking you could save your family, but you're too late. This land was never meant for the Duttons. Thanks to Clive, I know every weakness in your ranch. Spencer remains calm, his eyes locked on Creighton, memorizing every detail. If Clive betrayed them, the Duttons are in grave danger. Creighton won't stop until he destroys everything they've built. Back at the Yellowstone, Jacob has had enough. Jacob growls. We end this now. Find Clive and make him talk. The hunt for the traitor begins. Jacob and his men ride out, grim-faced and determined. Clive, who vanished like a ghost, knows the land well, but so do the Duttons. Jack rides ahead, his jaw clenched, his grip tight on his rifle. Clive's betrayal cuts deep, and when they find him, there will be no mercy. Meanwhile, Spencer sits bound in a dark room, his wrists raw from the ropes. Creighton stands over him, smug and victorious. Creighton taunts. Loyalty doesn't put food on the table. Clive knew what was coming long before you did. Spencer doesn't react. His mind is sharp, calculating. He studies the room, the weapons, the knife in Creighton's belt. He'll get his chance and he won't waste it. At the ranch, Kara prepares for war. She moves with quiet efficiency, ensuring every man knows his role. She's the heart of the family, and tonight that heart beats with one purpose: bringing Spencer home and making those responsible pay. Jacob and his men close in on Clive's last known location. The tension is unbearable. A rustling sound breaks the silence. Jack signals the others to stop. Footsteps echo through the trees. Jacob dismounts, rifle ready. Jack follows, his heart pounding. A figure darts ahead Clive. Jack chases him, cutting him off before he can escape. Clive pleads. "Jack, it's not what you think." Jack growls. "You sold us out. You sold my brother out." Jacob steps forward, his voice icy. Jacob demands, "Where's Spencer?" Clive hesitates, then breaks. Clive admits, "They have him at the old mining camp." Creighton plans to make an example of him. He's expecting an attack. Jacob absorbs the information. Time is running out. Jacob commands, "Tie him up. You're coming with us." Clive doesn't resist. His fate is sealed. As they ride back, the plan takes shape. They know where Spencer is. They know what they have to do. Before sunrise, they will strike for Spencer, for the family, for the Yellowstone. The final battle is coming. The stakes have never been higher. The Duttons are ready to do whatever it takes to bring Spencer home and seek vengeance for the betrayal that shattered their trust. The tension builds. Stay tuned to NEX TDOOR for updates, breakdowns, and discussions on 1923 and more. Like, comment, and subscribe for thrilling content. What's next for the Duttons? Let us know below. The greatest betrayals lead to the most epic battles. Keep watching, the next chapter is about to unfold.